What if the cartoons you grew up with held secrets you were never meant to see? The 80s gave birth to heroes, villains, and worlds that shaped a generation, then vanished overnight. Censorship lawsuits, studio collapse, nothing could stop the creative madness that poured out of animation houses. These are 15 forgotten 80s cartoons that redefined imagination before fading into the static of memory. Number 15. Galaxy High School, 1986. Galaxy High School looked innocent enough, a teenage comedy about Earth kids attending a cosmic high school filled with aliens. Yet beneath its colorful chaos, the show carried biting satire about discrimination, conformity, and power. Produced by Chris Columbus, the same writer who would later craft Gremlins and the Goonies, this Saturday morning series was wildly ahead of its time. The show flipped stereotypes, as Earth students Doyle and Amy were treated as the odd ones out among gelatinous creatures and sentient blobs. Each episode used absurd intergalactic humor to mirror real-world social structures. But American networks panicked. Critics accused it of being too sarcastic for kids, while parents claimed it mocked education and authority. Behind the scenes, the tone wavered between satire and slapstick, confusing its intended audience. NBC executives slashed its marketing budget and buried it in early morning time slots. Despite impressive animation from TMS, the Japanese studio behind later classics like Akira, the show lasted only 13 episodes. Decades later, fans rediscovered Galaxy High, online praising its themes of tolerance and identity hidden beneath alien pranks. What once seemed too strange for kids now feels visionary. It was a universe of teenage dreams orbiting too close to truth for television to handle. Number 14. Mighty Orbots, 1984. Imagine a team of transforming robots combining not just into a weapon, but into a symbol of global unity. Mighty Orbots burned bright and brief, a dazzling Japanese-American co-production that seemed destined for greatness. The animation shimmered like liquid metal, every frame alive with kinetic energy, decades ahead of its peers. The plot followed young inventor Rob Simmons and his team of sentient robots defending Earth from the dark nebula forces. It mixed superhero storytelling with high-concept mecha science fiction, yet it arrived at the worst possible moment. The toy aisles were already ruled by Transformers and GoBots, leaving Orbots with no marketing lifeline. Then came legal storms. Tonka filed a lawsuit claiming the show copied GoBots' designs, forcing MGM and TMS to shut it down after just one season. Behind the scenes, staff described the experience as heartbreaking. They had built something ambitious, filled with humor, heart, and diversity, only to watch it dissolve under corporate fear. Today, the surviving episodes are cult treasures shared among animation enthusiasts. Many see it as a missing link between 70s mecha anime and 90s American action cartoons. Mighty Orbots was the dream that briefly outshone its rivals, then vanished like a comet, leaving only nostalgia in its trail. Number 13. Turbo Teen, 1984. When a teenager morphs into a sports car every time he touches heat, you know the 80s have reached peak weirdness. Turbo Teen was equal parts fascination and absurdity, a show that both captivated and horrified its young audience. Produced by Ruby Spears, the minds behind Thundar the Barbarian, it was an experiment in body horror disguised as children's television. Brett Matthews, a high school student fused with his car after a lab accident, and now used his bizarre transformation powers to fight crime. The premise was wild, but animators pushed it further, with scenes of stretching skin and melting metal that left kids mesmerized or terrified. Controversy followed almost immediately. Parents wrote letters claiming the transformations were grotesque, while critics mocked its logic. Behind the scenes, animators worked overtime to finish episodes as budgets tightened, and network executives demanded it be more heroic, less grotesque. Despite the backlash, Turbo Teen developed a strange cult following for its unintentional surrealism. It became an internet legend decades later, inspiring memes, parodies, and even fan remakes. Beneath the laughter, however, lies a story about creative daring. Turbo Teen dared to merge man and machine long before Hollywood's digital obsessions, and paid the price for being too bizarre too soon. Number 12. The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers, 1986. The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers was unlike anything on television. It mixed Western grit with cyberpunk technology, creating a new kind of space frontier. Its heroes were lawmen, armed with artificial intelligence and moral conviction, patrolling a universe that felt strangely human. The tone was darker, sharper, and infinitely more mature than the cartoons of its era. The show's production team refused to follow toy company formulas. They built a serialized narrative about sacrifice, courage, and corruption set against alien empires. Critics praised the animation and storytelling, yet toy executives were furious. They wanted marketable gimmicks, not introspection. This rebellion doomed the series before it could find its audience. Behind the scenes, the creators fought to maintain creative control. Voice actors were veterans of anime dubbing studios, and the score was pure 80s rock anthem energy. It was bold, creative, and completely misunderstood. Syndication deals fell apart, and networks buried it in early morning slots where few kids could watch. Years later, Galaxy Rangers found redemption through nostalgia. Fans called it the thinking kids cartoon, the show that taught them storytelling could be deep and emotional. In an era obsessed with product lines, this series stood for artistic freedom. Its legacy is a cosmic echo, reminding us that courage sometimes means means defying the system itself. Number 11. BraveStarr, 1987. BraveStarr was Filmation's last stand, a daring Western science fiction hybrid that placed morality at its core. Set on the desert planet of New Texas, the series followed Marshall BraveStarr, a Native American hero who drew strength from the spirit of animals to defend settlers against space outlaws. It was visionary, diverse, and years ahead of mainstream representation. Yet controversy struck almost instantly. Critics accused the show of cultural stereotyping, while others praised its effort to honor indigenous mythology. The truth lay somewhere between. Filmation aimed to create a positive hero, but their corporate partners feared alienating advertisers. Some affiliates refused to air certain episodes, including one tackling drug addiction with tragic realism. Behind the scenes, Filmation was collapsing. Budgets vanished, distribution faltered, and toy sales disappointed. Despite strong moral lessons and cinematic ambition, BraveStarr ended after a single season and a forgotten feature film. In retrospect, the show was revolutionary. It blended environmentalism, spirituality, and justice long before such themes were fashionable. Fans rediscovered it decades later, appreciating its courage to address responsibility and identity in a medium built for escapism. BraveStarr remains a fallen giant, a moral frontier that burned bright before being buried under the sands of commercialization. Number 10. The Mighty Heroes Revival, 1987. In the late 80s, the creators of Mighty Mouse revived their earlier cult, hit the Mighty Heroes, a band of absurd misfit superheroes. Each hero was ridiculous by design. Cuckoo Man, Tornado, Man, Diaper Man, Rope, Man, Strong Man, ordinary people with the strangest powers imaginable. The revival sought to bring surreal humor back into the mainstream, but television had changed. Audiences expected realism or science fiction spectacle, not slapstick heroism. Critics dismissed it as childish, and stations quietly pulled it from rotation. Yet the revival's humor hid clever social commentary. It mocked the commercialization of superhero culture and the uniform perfection of modern cartoon idols. Production chaos plagued every episode. Budgets were tiny scripts rewritten constantly, and animators recycled footage to meet impossible deadlines. Voices were recorded across different studios, causing uneven sound. But the creators pressed on, driven by nostalgia and a need to prove that silliness still had value. The result was a show caught between two eras. Too weird for children, too sincere for irony. Decades later, animation historians praised it for celebrating imperfection in a medium obsessed with polish. The Mighty Heroes revival was a comic book, fever dream, too brave, too chaotic, and far too human to survive its time. Number 9. C.O.P.S, 1988. Before gritty realism reached primetime, one animated show dared to blend crime noir and futuristic fantasy. C.O.P.S, short for Central Organization of Police Specialists, was a visual thunderstorm of metallic skylines, laser pistols, and moral conviction. It followed a team of law enforcers in Empire City, battling robotic gangsters and cybernetic crime lords. At its center stood Bulletproof, a heroic detective rebuilt with steel after a near-fatal explosion. The show's style was pure adrenaline. Explosions lit up neon alleys. Sirens wailed like rock guitars. Yet beneath the spectacle was a surprisingly dark tone. Each episode explored corruption, greed, and justice at a level rarely seen in Saturday morning programming. The villains were not just crooks, but reflections of society's growing obsession with wealth and power. Still, controversy struck hard. The name C.O.P.S alarmed parent groups already wary of rising police violence debates. Critics claimed the show glamorized militarized policing, even though its characters followed strict ethics codes. Others accused it of being too violent for children. Syndication cuts removed certain scenes, while some networks refused to air it altogether. Behind the scenes, production was rushed. Hasbro expected it to push toy sales, but the toys barely moved. The budget tightened, the creative team fought to protect their complex storylines, and syndication ended after only one full season. In later years, fans rediscovered C.O.P.S as a misunderstood cyberpunk gem. Its animation aged gracefully, and its vision of technology-driven law enforcement proved eerily prophetic. Beneath the lasers and metallic armor lay a genuine exploration of heroism in a collapsing world. C.O.P.S remains one of the 80s most intelligent failures, a show punished for daring to mirror real human flaws. Number 8. Visionaries. Knights of the Magical Light, 1987. There was a time when cartoons tried to mix swords, sorcery, and holograms. Visionaries. Knights of the Magical Light was that strange experiment, a breathtaking fusion of fantasy and technology, unlike anything before or since. Produced by Sunbow, the minds behind G.I. Joe and Transformers, it followed two factions of warriors on the planet Prismos, a world where science had died and magic returned. Each knight carried holographic totems that summoned spirit animals, symbolizing their virtues and flaws. Their armor shimmered with glowing light, an animation marvel achieved through cutting-edge rotoscoping and optical effects. It was poetic, grand, and deeply mythological. The show spoke of balance between progress and nature, a theme decades ahead of its time. But Visionaries was doomed before it began. Its toy line launched just as the market for action figures collapsed. Networks slashed its airtime, leaving only 13 episodes. Parents complained that it was too violent and too complex for kids. Behind the scenes, animators lamented how their most beautiful work went unseen. Critics later recognized Visionaries as a masterpiece of visual storytelling. Its dialogue dialogue quoted ancient proverbs, its world-building rivaled Tolkien. Yet its downfall became a parable about corporate fear. It dared to dream too vividly at a time when networks wanted simplicity and safe profits. Today, fans restore episodes frame by frame, keeping alive the spirit of courage that once shone through holographic light. Visionaries was not a cartoon. It was a prophecy that imagination always demands sacrifice. Number 7. Inhumanoids, 1986. If nightmares could walk and talk, they would look like Inhumanoids. This terrifying animated series from Hasbro blurred the line between children's entertainment and cosmic horror. It told the story of monstrous creatures imprisoned beneath the Earth, released to wreak havoc on humanity. Only a team of armored scientists known as Earth Corps stood in their way, wielding technology against ancient evil. The creatures were grotesque beyond reason. One dissolved his enemies in acid, another wore the skin of the dead like a cloak. Even by 80s standards, it was shocking. Parents protested immediately, calling it too violent, too disturbing, too real. Stations pulled it mid-season despite solid ratings. Behind the scenes, creators like Flint Dill fought to preserve its darker tone, arguing that mythic fear had a place in storytelling. But Hasbro panicked. The toy company demanded toning down gore and cutting entire story arcs. The censorship stripped it of coherence. After 13 episodes, it was gone. Yet those who saw it never forgot it. Inhumanoids became a whispered legend, traded on VHS tapes and late-night reruns. Decades later, horror fans hailed it as the boldest animated series ever made for television. Beneath its chaos lay a haunting allegory about humanity's arrogance and the monsters we bury deep within ourselves. It stood as a warning that when commerce tries to tame creativity, something precious always dies. Inhumanoids was too terrifying for its time, too honest for its audience, and far too imaginative for the corporate boardroom. Number 6. SilverHawks, 1986. When you think of animated legends, you think of heroes soaring through metallic skies, chasing evil through the cold vacuum of space. That was SilverHawks. Created by the same team behind Thundercats, it fused cosmic adventure with high-concept science fiction and dazzling metallic animation. The premise was pure 80s excess, a team of cybernetically enhanced heroes, part metal, part human, fighting the villainous Mon, Star, and his gang of space criminals in the distant galaxy of Limbo. Each episode felt like a music video, fueled by synthesizers and chrome. The designs gleamed like liquid steel, the voice acting was pure theater, and the theme song burned itself into memory. Yet under the spectacle lay melancholy. The Silverhawks had sacrificed their humanity to become living weapons forced to defend justice in a galaxy that no longer remembered Earth. It was as tragic as it was thrilling, but trouble arrived quickly. The show's production costs were astronomical, and its darker undertones unsettled sponsors. Parents complained about frightening imagery and the idea of human cybernetic experimentation. Network executives panicked, demanding lighter scripts. Animation studios worked under brutal schedules, often finishing scenes days before broadcast. Despite impressive quality, it became one of the most expensive Saturday morning shows ever made. The toys failed to sell. Kids loved watching the show, but few could afford the costly metal action figures. Without toy sales, the series collapsed after just 65 episodes. What was meant to be a multimedia empire became another ghost in the syndication graveyard. Yet Silverhawks never truly died. Its fans grew older carrying memories of metallic feathers and bittersweet heroism. In retrospect, it stands as a haunting allegory of sacrifice. It asked what humanity costs in the pursuit of perfection, and whether the heart can survive inside the machine. The Silverhawks soared too high too fast, and burned in their own brilliance. Number 5. Bionic Six, 1987. Before family-friendly superheroes became a Hollywood formula, Bionic Six dared to tell a story about unity born from tragedy. The series followed Professor Sharp and his family transformed into cyborgs after a scientific accident. They became Earth's last defense against mad scientists and mutant threats. But this was no typical cartoon. It blended domestic warmth with psychological depth, making it one of the most emotionally layered shows of the decade. The animation came from Japan's TMS studio, giving it cinematic movement unseen in American television. Each episode balanced superhero action with heartfelt family tension. The show explored adoption, identity, and the pain of being different. It was gentle yet profound, presenting science fiction as a metaphor for love and belonging. Yet networks did not know what to do with it. It lacked the clear toy line of Transformers or the simplicity of He-Man. Critics called it too sentimental for action fans and too dark for children. Behind the scenes, production costs soared while toy sales lagged. Scripts were rewritten constantly to balance emotion and spectacle. Advertisers grew impatient. Then came backlash. Parents complained that the violence was too intense and that its human themes were confusing. NBC quietly canceled it after 2 seasons. The final episodes aired with little promotion, leaving viewers unaware that the story had ended. But time redeemed Bionic Six. Decades later, fans rediscovered it as a rare masterpiece that dared to humanize superheroes. It remains one of the few cartoons that celebrated diversity and emotion in an age of consumerism. The Bionic Six taught that being powerful meant nothing without compassion. Its legacy is not in merchandise, but in memory, a shining relic of courage, disguised as a Saturday morning show. Number 4. Spiral Zone, 1987. There are forgotten cartoons, and then there is Spiral Zone. Zone, an animated dystopia so dark, so unsettling, that it felt more like a warning than entertainment. Set in a future ravaged by biological warfare, it depicted a world where the villainous Dr. Mindwarp unleashed a mysterious infection, turning humans into mindless slaves trapped in permanent agony. The only resistance came from the Zone Riders' elite soldiers equipped with anti-infection armor. The visuals were haunting. Cities crumbled under green mist, soldiers fought amid broken monuments, and civilians wandered soulless under control. It was psychological horror disguised as science fiction. Each episode explored fear, obedience, and the fragility of free will. Children who tuned in expecting adventure were greeted with something closer to Orwell than Optimus Prime. Censors panicked. Some networks demanded entire scenes removed, claiming the imagery was too grim. Toy companies hesitated to advertise alongside it, fearing parental outrage. Production teams described intense creative battles as writers tried to preserve mature storytelling, while executives pushed for safer content. Budgets shrank, staff quit, and animation deadlines became impossible. The show lasted only one season of 65 episodes. Yet in those episodes, it captured a level of emotional gravity unmatched by most cartoons of its era. The Spiral Zone itself became a metaphor for societal decay, for how power corrupts and control infects everything it touches. Decades later, collectors restored the series from VHS tapes, giving it a second life online. It gained cult status among fans of dystopian fiction. They saw it not as a children's show, but as an animated reflection of Cold War anxiety and the fear of losing individuality. Spiral Zone proved that even in the bright age of cartoons, darkness could speak truth. It was a masterpiece buried by fear, resurrected by memory. Number 3, The Centurions, 1986, Power Extreme. That was the battle cry of The Centurions, a series that embodied everything bold and bombastic about 80s animation. It told the story of 3 elite heroes, Max Ray, the Sea Operations Commander, Jake Rockwell, the Land Specialist, and Ace McCloud, the Aerial Warrior, who fused with high-tech exosuits to battle the evil Doc Terror. At first glance, it looked like a typical toy-driven adventure show, but beneath its metallic armor lay something deeper, more visionary, and ultimately more tragic. Created through a collaboration between Ruby Spears and animation studio Sunrise of Japan, the Centurions pushed the boundaries of design and complexity. The animation shimmered with precision, and the tech felt almost prophetic, predicting drone warfare and human augmentation decades before Hollywood caught up. Each exosuit represented not just power, but dependency, a subtle metaphor for man merging with machine. Yet the brilliance of the Centurions became its downfall. The show's intricate technology and moral undertones alienated younger audiences. Toy companies panicked when sales lagged behind simpler action figures like G.I. Joe and Transformers. Executives demanded changes faster, pacing fewer speeches, more explosions. The creators reluctantly complied, but the damage was done. Ratings dropped, networks restructured schedules, and the series quietly ended after a single season of 65 episodes. Behind the scenes, exhaustion set in. Animation teams described impossible deadlines and constant interference. Writers fought to maintain thematic depth while balancing toy commercials disguised as stories. The show's darker episodes, which hinted at the psychological toll of warfare, were often pulled or rewritten. Years later, the Centurions gained a devoted following among science fiction fans, who recognized it as one of the most ambitious animated productions of the era. It was a show about duty, sacrifice, and technology's shadow. A story that mirrored the anxieties of its creators, humans drowning inside the machines they built. The Centurions stood tall in concept, but fell victim to commercial gravity. Like their heroes, they fought bravely, but were consumed by the very system they served. Number 2, Jem and the Holograms, 1985. Long before pop stars ruled social media, Jem and the Holograms electrified television screens with glitter, rebellion, and heart. It was the story of Jerrica Benton, a record executive who used advanced holographic technology to transform into Jem, the fearless frontwoman of a rock band. But Jem was more than neon lights and catchy tunes. It was a revolution disguised as a cartoon, daring to celebrate identity, feminism, and artistic freedom in a decade obsessed with conformity. Created by Christy Marks and produced by Hasbro, the series broke every rule. It showcased female leadership, diversity, and emotional storytelling that tackled jealousy, fame, and self-discovery. Each song carried hidden messages about self-respect and empowerment. Yet its success provoked discomfort among advertisers who preferred safe male-driven narratives. Some critics mocked it as too feminist, others too fashion-focused. Behind the pink glow chaos brewed. The production demanded non-stop music videos synchronized with animation, a logistical nightmare that pushed animators to exhaustion. Hasbro's constant push for toy ties, parents forced rewrites and delayed entire arcs. When sales of dolls underperformed, executives lost faith. Syndication time slots shifted erratically, and viewers struggled to follow the story's continuity. Censorship also struck when the series addressed mental health, substance abuse, and social pressure. Networks trimmed entire episodes fearing backlash. Despite critical praise, Jem's story ended abruptly, leaving character arcs unresolved and fans heartbroken. Decades later, Jem became a cultural touchstone, rediscovered by new generations who saw through its pastel surface to its radical core. It inspired modern musicians, fashion designers, and even academics academic studies about gender representation. It was ahead of its time, too real for its market and too bold for its network. Jem and the Holograms remains the neon dream that refused to fade, the anthem of creative defiance in a plastic decade. Number 1. Robotech, 1985. If one cartoon defined epic storytelling in the 80s, it was Robotech. Adapted from multiple Japanese series, including Macross and Mos Beata, it became a sprawling saga of war, love, and survival spanning generations. For many Western viewers, it was the first time animation dared to treat them like adults. It spoke of sacrifice, politics, and loss in ways few live-action shows even attempted. Robotech followed humanity's struggle after discovering alien technology that changed civilization forever. Fighter jets transformed into mecha warriors. Pilots fell in love amid battles. Entire cities floated through space. The music was haunting, the dialogue philosophical, and the tone unmistakably tragic. Children expecting action found themselves watching a space opera that examined humanity's place in the cosmos, but behind the brilliance lay turbulence. The adaptation process was chaotic, as producers stitched together 3 unrelated Japanese series to meet American syndication requirements. Scenes were edited, censored, or rewritten to fit narrative continuity. Voice actors recorded marathon sessions to rework dialogue across cultures. The creative team was under immense pressure to meet daily deadlines while maintaining coherence in a story that spanned 85 episodes. Despite production turmoil, Robotech became a phenomenon. It inspired fan fiction conventions and even university courses on media globalization. Yet corporate mismanagement ended any chance for sequels. Legal battles over rights dragged for decades, stalling potential reboots. The original creators moved on, while fans clung to VHS tapes and whispered rumors of lost scripts. Today, Robotech stands as both triumph and tragedy, a masterpiece born from chaos. It bridged East and West, challenged assumptions about animated storytelling, and inspired generations of artists. Its message still resonates, that love and war are never simple, and that survival always demands sacrifice. Robotech shaped a generation that learned emotion could live even in the heart of a machine. From robotic warriors to neon idols, these 15 forgotten cartoons proved that animation could be more than child's play. They dared to dream beyond profit, to speak of loss, hope, and humanity. Which one do you remember most vividly from your childhood? Tell us in the comments, like, share, and subscribe for more journeys through the lost vaults of classic animation.